the source of funds on basis of which the compensation to the losing states will be funded. On this issue, we have virtually converged towards a consensus. The formal announcement of that, after working out the technical details, will be made in the next meeting itself. The underlying principle which has been accepted is that one assessee would be assessed only by one authority. That's the advantage of the GST. So whom will the center assess and whom will the state assess, and how that bifurcation will take place depends on how the dual authority is managed.
So that's the Finance Minister very clearly saying that there is convergence on the mechanism for compensation, and that basically means that most state governments seem to be okay in principle with the idea of the imposition of a cess on luxury items. We also caught up with a whole host of state finance ministers as well as tax experts to break their reactions, and the consensus seems to be a cess is a bad idea. It will distort the GST structure. We already have to now deal with multiple rates and multiple slabs, and this is not what was needed.
The key issue, more than the rates, it is the administration. Frankly, the key challenge for us is all the states put together have about 2,72,000 people, while the center has some 82,000 people. So who will be owning which piece of the assessees is the key challenge, which I think will get addressed in the next meeting. And in my view, if it goes with the same spirit of give and take, we could have something.
We wanted to examine it more closely. Now the approach is whatever excise and VAT, total tax on commodity, the commodities will be classified accordingly, and they would be put into the rate at a level nearer to existing rate. But VAT rate is 5% of the lower side now. There are some 200 commodities on which there is no excise, but there is a VAT tax of 5%. It is proposed they would be raised to 6%. Well, I don't think it will be good to do that.
We wanted to keep it as neat, as clean, as simple, with minimum of distortions as possible. But since this compensation formula had to be worked out, and we did try to discuss various other permutation combinations, but nothing was more simpler and neater and cleaner than this. And this is the reason that we had to go in for this additional imposition of cess.
Some states did express reservations on the fact that how could you use cess as a means of funding, because it makes it self-compensatory. It comes out of GST itself. And an implication of the fact that you're trying to fund it through cess is that the rates will rise. So the expectation by and large had been that this would come out of the Consolidated Fund of India, as it had happened in the case of VAT. But given the magnitudes are large, it doesn't seem to be possible for the Government of India to fund it through the Consolidated Fund from their own resources.
Why mess up the whole thing by putting a cess when you don't know the quantum? What do they estimate? Let them study, make a model and give us the estimate. If it's going to be 2 lakh crores, it's better to increase the rate. If it's going to be 30,000 crores, 40,000 crores, it's better to borrow money and give it and see what happens after 1 year. Raise the top rate to 30% from 26%. Simple, easy, clean. We go back to the same old mess of a very contrived, bad system without full follow-through, too much of litigation, we don't know what happens, and maybe evasion will also come. So I think they must think it through and come with data and decide themselves. It's very disappointing about the cess issue.
Multiple rate structure was at least a reality. We knew that there is going to be rates. We only didn't know whether it's going to be 5 or 4 or 3, but that's a fact that was there on the table for some time. Cess was something which has been a surprise. You already have a multiple structure, which means already our GST is going to be far more complicated than what one had envisaged. And then you add a cess to it. I don't think the industry is going to be happy on the cess concept.
Well, I think that we are going backwards now. It is a retrograde step to undermine the credibility of GST, which has been understood by the public so far. We are actually distorting the structure by bringing a altogether unacceptable method of levying cess. We have said that we will, under GST, we will abolish all the cesses, and then we are bringing new cess.
Well, tax experts, they're unanimous in their opposition to the imposition of an additional cess.